Hey, thank you so much for watching, listening. Woof, we have fun, a fun guest for you today. But, of course, I want you to subscribe because we have amazing content, interviews, super, super fun interactions here. So make sure you subscribe. And this is my friend, Laura Harris-Smith. Thank you so much for hanging out.
Sarah. Good to be back.
Have fun. Laura, tell us, where are you from?
Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised. I've survived 56 tornado seasons, so
Wow.
still alive.
Jeez, oh Pete's.
Yeah.
Because some of those have been pretty intense.
Yes. When I was 6 years old, I was sitting in a piano lesson, and there was a big bay window behind me, and a huge tree branch just crashed through it. And since then, I'm like, what? I haven't ever been afraid of one. I don't know why. I mean, there's been a lot more devastation than that around us. 2 years ago, our community was almost wiped out.
Right.
With some, but yeah, tornadoes for us, many people here, go to the basement. Few do. It's sort of like people who ride out hurricanes. Like people just don't take cover at tornadoes in Tennessee.
Really?
Well, it's like if you get a forecast of snow here, you're not going to run and rush to buy milk and bread and all of that. You know how to get around in it.
Kind of. Well, I mean, we know if it's a big snowstorm,
Yeah.
everybody, okay, we'll stock up.
You get prepared, yeah.
Yeah.
No, 2 inches in Nashville, and it's food again
yeah.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah. And you get ice storms.
We do. We get ice storms. We get a lot of black ice.
Yeah.
So you have to watch where you step.
Yeah.
You know, It's not uncommon every year to hear somebody say, oh, yeah, I fell on black ice. But anyway.
Interesting.
How did we start talking about the weather in like 2 minutes?
Nashville.
Sorry, I brought it up.
I know. No, it's good. I asked you. I was like, where are you? So that's totally good. And you have 12 grandkids.
Yes,
and
we
counting.
do. Mm-hmm. And counting.
So what does that look like? What's the age range? Because they're
Our twins were 15 2 days ago. So our first word. So we have teenage grandkids.
Yeah.
And my oldest daughter had 6 kids in 6 years. The second one has 3. The third one, on and on and on. So last year, our 4th one was married. And like 3 months later, we had booties in our Christmas stockings, alerting us, you're going to have So the youngest 2 are not married. And the baby just graduated college in December. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
So,
and what, because you have 6 kids.
Yes, 16-year age span there.
And what are they all doing?
They're all writers. They're all communicators. They're all creative. We homeschooled them all, and that allowed us to, for those 24 years, I wasn't the best teacher in the world, but I knew my kids, and I knew what their bents were. I wanted them to discover them. And so we have, one that's gone out to Hollywood and is writing and directing there. He's YouTube, I think the media calls him a YouTube phenomenon, whatever. Out of 99 million channels, his was like number 50 something, Wow. So they've each found their niches. Some are musical, photographers, videographers. One's a midwife.
Whoa.
So obviously that's like, she's not in a creative world, but hey, how can you? That's creative. That's like creating life. So yeah, they're different, but we have 3 boys and 3 girls, and I wouldn't do it over any differently. It was none of them came at a convenient time.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't. In retrospect, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. And for you, like empty nests, and you've shifted, kind of done a little bit of a pivot, so to speak. So tell us what's the latest stuff you've been dabbling in, and how's that growing?
Well, I have to just stop and say that the only reason I started writing books, I didn't think that I could do it. And I wrote skits and plays and poems. I've been writing poetry since I was like in 3rd grade, and and just dabbling there. But when it was in the 80s, so I was, in my 20s, and I decided we should start a dinner theater at church. It'd be great outreach for the community. Let's do it. The pastor says, go for it. Here's a few $100s and get started. And we had our first meeting, and someone said, well, what play are we going to do? And I said, well, I don't know yet. I'm shopping around. They said, you ought to write the play. And I said, I can't write anything long. I don't have the attention span. I do poems and skits. And this woman nagged me until finally I said, all right, I'll do it. And that was 1989. There was a publisher in the audience. I thought it always happened this easy. You know, I was 20, whatever. I was like 24.
Right.
And so that was my first book. And it was really for churches, for the creative arts and those type of departments in church, kind of a niche. And then the next 12 books, my husband and my mother and I enjoyed. I got no publishing deal, you know, just had to pump it out, keep being obedient. So for me, the empty nest thing it wasn't the launch. It was like book, baby, book, baby, book, baby. But we were schooling at home. I was grabbing moments to write when I could. Yeah. And so my story is really one of how the local church pulls your gifts out of you, gives you the courage to try them, fail, you know, whatever. And then just being a stay-at-home mom, I was then able to just foster that. I was kind of in a safe little nest to experiment, get it wrong, get it right. And then almost 10 years, I guess next year will be 10 years that I had actually written a book about our family, because all of them, we did television and commercials and that type of thing. And so I was writing a book, and I was in the middle of casting. We were going to do a pilot for it. And our mutual friend, James Gall, shows up at church. We now pastor a church, a creative arts church in Nashville, and have been doing that for 17 years. And he shows up and he says, stands me up, you know, and he says, the Lord says to tell you, don't forget about your writing. I'm sending you an on-ramp, and I'm seeing October and next March. And I don't know what that means. And I thought, I finally got a plan. What is this? And in October, I signed a publishing deal with Baker on a book I had not written, on Dreams and Visions, Seeing the Voice of God. And they said, can you turn in the manuscript in March? And I have been with them for 10 years. And I think our 6th book is about to come out. So Chris and I are going to write it together. Fun. So this is going to be different. So yeah, empty nest for me was not, it didn't really start. It was sort of like it happened while the nest was full and allowed a really safe place for me to experiment.
And then too, you've done the, I'm not going to say it, naturopath. I never say it right. How do I say it?
I was recording something yesterday and I said it wrong. It's naturopathy. So I am a naturopath. So what happened was about 9 years ago, was right as I signed the contract, I almost lost my life. Got very, very sick. I was getting about 4 hours sleep a night. And my mother had done it. My father did it. I was like, Albert Einstein did it. I'll be fine, you know. And I was on the brink of adrenal failure and didn't know it. And so I had to make changes or die, they told me. They said, if you turn it around, if you live, it will be 18 to 24 months. Evidently, John F. Kennedy had it so badly, had he not been assassinated, he would have been dead in a year. So it's called adrenal burnout, adrenal fatigue, Addison's disease anyway. And so that changed the nature of my writing. And very quickly, as I launched with Baker, it was like Jehovah sneaky. I was in the middle of this contract and trying to get well and live, and my writing took on a real body, mind, and spirit kind of tone. And I just, once I got well and once I saw how it was resonating with people, I felt like I owed it to my readers to do more than just, hey, I'm a farmer's daughter and these vegetables saved me, which is really what it was. Food was medicine. Because when your whole body's shutting down and every organ system was, I could not just throw a pill at each one or my liver couldn't have handled it. So all to say, I just decided if I'm going to go back to school, or if I'm going to have to do this, let's just go back to school and get credentialed. And the bachelor's, you know, I finished that, had not done that because I started having children when I think the first one came when I was 19. So I had not finished college. And then the bachelor's led to the master's, and the master's was, okay, I'll just keep going. So last year I became an ND, a naturopathic doctor. So I don't have a practice. I'm not a clinical, I don't have time for that. But I do it for my readers, and I feel like it's sad, but it's true. If you have a few letters after your name, people will, in that realm, they'll listen to you a little more. Nobody else cares. You know, life experience is really what people want. Right. Honestly. So,
tell me about, like, what did you do? What have you been doing in the COVID stuff? And what are your thoughts about COVID? It's a hot question.
I was actually just off camera. I was going to ask you the same thing because we haven't seen each other since then. And, you know, I'll be honest with you. Right before everything happened, and I'm going to jump back to March of 2020. So we had heard about it on the news a little bit. We didn't have any cases in Tennessee that we knew of. Tornadoes ravaged our community.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, had just happened. And, you know, I went in with my camera crew for the show that I have, and we were going to film like a dozen shows and knock them out. And I thought, you've been on my show. I was like, it's not going to be the big live studio, but it'll be okay. Well, the tornadoes ripped through everything, shut everything down in Nashville. 2 days later, the first case of corona was discovered.
Wow.
Really shut everything down, and we had the best looking thing on television, you know. And so God just took care of season 3. And yet all of that, we just everybody went into hiding, and it was our writer's life period. You know, not much change there. The trick for us was keeping a church not just alive, but thriving.
Sure.
And we began to notice that because of the tornadoes, we had started a food pantry. We'd always wanted to do that. And our sweet governor, Bill Lee, he is a spirit-led man, and he tried to keep churches on the essentials list as long as he could. And then he said food pantries will be on. So because we were a food pantry, we just told everybody, if you're going to come to church, you have to do these things, including you have to get food.
Yeah.
so we stayed open the whole time. We never had anyone catch COVID at church. There were some youth that had congregated outside of church, which is fine, but they weren't taking a lot of precautions.
Sure.
None of us were fearful or anything, but there was a group of people that, you know, a few rebels who were like, oh, it doesn't matter. We're not going to, and about 20 of them went under. And so they recovered very quickly. But yeah, we never had to shut down. And that for us was the biggest COVID challenge. And I was shocked. We're not a huge church. So I was shocked. I was totally shocked when my husband, who had been praying for us to have our biggest financial year ever so we could do some new things, he said, well, I guess it won't happen this year. It was our biggest year ever.
That's cool.
In 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how do you see like COVID affecting sleep?
I have a lot of people that say that they even post it like on my author page on Facebook. I haven't slept since COVID. So as you know, for 40 something years, I used to have horrible convulsions. I had a long, hard neurological history ever since I was a teenager. And so about 5-6 years ago, I created an essential oil blend really out of necessity to quiet my own brain. I had not had a convulsion in like 20 years, but I would still have some of the little small breakthrough seizures, and was really standing in faith for healing. And God told me he was going to heal me by process. So here I am becoming a naturopathic doctor, and I'm like, come on, I can do something. And the Lord gives me this idea for this oil blend. Well, it turns out it helps you sleep too. So it's called Quiet Brain. And I gave you some when we were here, remember? And you had been through everything with your head injury. And wow, can I just stop and say, I'm so glad that you're better.
Well, some people say I am not better. Some people say it's like permanent, maybe.
That was tricky. But yeah, so that then led to a business that I was not expecting. It was Jehovah Sneaky again. And before I knew it, we had done $30,000 from our kitchen table. 2 years later, we'd done $500,000. We hit our $1 million mark last year. But it's all because now these are through television revenue shares. So you have to immediately give 50% to the networks.
Sure.
And then you take the other and pay we have 10 employees and buy all the stuff. So it's not, let me just say this. I feel like it's a ministry where, especially during COVID, we've had products that are helping people sleep. We have all kinds of spin-off products. 2 new scents. One is Happy Brain, and it helps people it lifts mood, helps depression, all of that. And then Sharp Brain, which we introduced last, but before COVID, and it's helping people with COVID brain fog. And so we could not have planned all of that. It was all ready to go when everything hit. And so I'm really thankful. You know, Sarah, I feel like I feel like in a world of people who plan, they have their 5-year plan, their 10-year plan. My life is just, it was none of that. I was doing the little things God told me to do. I was trying to find something for my own busy brain. I was trying to just write a play for my church, whatever. I was just trying to stay home, do good by my kids and help this lot of creatives I was trying to raise, whatever. And then stuff found me. That's just the way God works. When you seek first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness, just try to be in right standing with God, He will add everything else to you. That's my story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think being true to the design God puts in you.
Yeah.
That's totally cool.
Yeah, that's true.
That's totally cool. So thank you so much for subscribing, of course. Hit the notification bell there so we can give you updates when we have new content posted. And I'd like for you to think about this. For your brain, what do you think your brain needs the most? You're like, what? I know, right? You have to think about it for a little minute, but leave that in the comments. That would be really, really fun to read your comments on that. And here we go with these amazing jokes. I just have one. I know. This one's good, though. It's new. So I'm going to watch all the camera operators behind the scenes because they're going to be like, oh, my God. What do you get if you put a duck in a cement mixer? Quacks in the pavement.
I was really hoping I would get one with you. I don't ever get any of yours.
Everybody behind the camera is like, oh my gosh. Right? So thanks again. But, we're going to have really good jokes the next time. Thanks for watching.